want to go full-time crypto trading because it just makes it so easy, what would you say?
Well, first, that's stupid. First thing you should do is ask yourself why. There are healthy ways to use social media. There are healthy ways to take care of your body and your mental health. For me personally, entrepreneurship, trading, all of these things are connected and fluid. It's just as important to make sure you're eating healthy, taking care of your body. Like, I've always been the guy that's like, okay, well, that's shitty, but like, what are my options?
What would you wish I would have asked you, but I didn't?
Just don't be creepy about it. Lowest points of my emotional state are...
Ready? Let's go.
Hi, James. How are you today?
Good. How are you?
Great.
Good.
Good to have you. What's your title?
So I am the founder of Mono, which is a lifestyle brand for modern nomads.
And what does it stand for? Like, what's the vision and mission behind it?
The vision is really to create the go-to brand for the modern nomad going into the next 5 to 10 years. And the way to do that, I think, is really to follow, fear of God and supreme, and kind of create that younger cult following and really look to grow from there. The mission, starting out was to establish the brand, create some brand awareness, and get as many people excited about what's possible within the brand as it relates to global activations, community, and then really building towards what I'm calling real world utility.
Do you identify yourself as nomad?
A little bit.
How did you get into this entire thing? There are so many brands out there. Why Mono?
For me personally, it does go into the blockchain tech Web3 industry, whatever you want to call it. I think that once upon a time, 2019 even, I had started to look at cryptocurrencies as an alternative form of investment, because me and the stock market with Roaring Kitty and GameStop and AMC just did not work out. What had happened was I found a community in a subreddit called WallStreetBets. And effectively at one point that subreddit was shut down. Myself and some of the other moderators were online when this happened, and we instantly spun up a new subreddit, branded ourselves as the official version, and were able to create effectively our first alpha group without knowing it.
What is alpha group?
So it's sort of like a group of like-minded individuals, sort of a community of people who are along the vein of what Roaring Kitty did with GameStop and AMC, excited about the discourse around financial investments in the retail market, right? So it's not, a room full of financial advisors. Sure, there may be a CFA in there or two, maybe an accountant, but the majority of these people are just trying to better their lives and educate themselves on avenues to do so, because unfortunately in the world today, financial literacy is not exactly taught in primary school. From an educational standpoint, I found immense value in this sub-community. And so when it was taken down, I felt personally affected by this, and also felt that there were so many other people who would find value in the creation and continuation of that sub-community, or whatever that form would be. As I was saying, when that happened, that community was effectively, from a bird's eye view, something that I was a part of and had access to, as opposed to being, towards the bottom of the community, if you will, as just another member in the community, right? I don't want to describe a pyramid, but if you look at the way that these things are formed, it's not exactly a square, nor is it really a circle, despite, what a lot of people may lead you to believe. The reality of it is, unfortunately, that there is sort of a triangle. But the beauty of online communities, in my opinion, is that triangle is not necessarily linked to socioeconomic demographics, but rather linked to your education. And so with the advent of the internet, and you look at artificial intelligence, you can run into ChatGPT, and even most web browsers now have their own AI, language learning model, LLM, whatever you want to call it, where you can ask a question and get a much better answer than you could 5-10 years ago with Google searching. The ability with the current state of technology to be able to educate yourself on a myriad amount of topics, right? Like it's beautiful to me. Okay. And that's why, going back to Mono, I thought it was a great time to get into this, because a lot of the digital nomads of old, if you will, were around the internet, which was a big read and write boom, like the ability to write on a Facebook wall, create your MySpace room, email back and forth and have like AOL instant messengers, that was cool. So people wanted to do that because it helped them connect with other people. I see the same thing happening with what's now being called the Web3 or blockchain industry, right? And sure, it may have gotten a lot of publicity in the last 3 or 4 years, but there have been people that have been doing this since 2013 or earlier, right? And a lot of those guys, I actually met one of them today, were just insane people, right? Like, why are you going to buy this internet token, right? I remember a story where my younger brother actually, he was studying college at NYU, and because he really needed a fake ID, he wanted to get one, right? But the only way to do that was with Bitcoin on something called the dark net or whatever it was. At the time, he had a chunk of Bitcoin. Why did he have a chunk of Bitcoin? Because he's a smart kid. And he told my parents that, hey, I want to have, instead of an Xbox and a TV for my birthday one year, he said, I want to have the equivalent of Bitcoin.
He did that.
He did that. The unfortunate reality of the situation was that his priorities at the time were not so long-term, and the horizon of something like Bitcoin seemed very, very limiting. And so the idea of the near-term gratification for the fake ID being able to party with your friends was a lot cooler at the time. And Bitcoin created the avenue for him to do that, right? So even back then, there were retail opportunities to use Bitcoin, but there were still the people that were like, no, this is going to change the financial system. This is going to be the next big thing. And those people may have been a little bit, on the fringe of society, if you will, because it's kind of hard to convince everyone in traditional finance that this is going to be the future. But you look at guys like Michael Saylor today, and obviously it is, right? You look at the next 5 to 10 years, it's not exactly a negative prognosis for Bitcoin. Well, going back to the idea of community, I think that now there's been this sort of reawakening and refocus on the cryptocurrency industry because of what's happened to Bitcoin in the last 2 to 3 years, because of what's happened to the world with the pandemic in the last 2 to 3 years, right? Post-pandemic, pre-pandemic. It's just such a stark contrast that the younger generations, because myself as sort of a non-traditional student, I fumbled my way through an undergrad program. And by the time I was finishing that, it was in the middle of the pandemic or towards the end of the pandemic. So a lot of my classes were switched to online. The idea of a 4-day work week was starting to become more ubiquitous in the United States. And ultimately the idea that I can be a telecommuter when I graduate, right? I don't have to just stay in one place, right? I can start to explore the world a little bit more, which spoke a lot to me, right? Because of my mother being from South America, I remember we would go back and forth and try and visit family as much as possible. So the other catalyst for me personally, right, was once the pandemic finished and I had a degree and I had a corporate, a job opportunity because of the way and opportunities that I had during my undergraduate program, I could spend more time in South America with my family. And that was beautiful to me. But even in corporate, you have something called PTO. Right. And once you burn paid time off. Right. And so once you burn through your PTO or your paid time off, especially in the federal contracting world, which is where I was at, your butt's in a chair and you better be working, dude. And so I just felt so limited by, the constraints of time and physical location that I sort of redoubled and tripled my efforts into this, cryptocurrency thing, because as I mentioned, a little while ago, once the subreddit was now more of a bird's eye view thing instead of a retail community member thing, and I had the opportunity to educate myself alongside sort of a computer information systems track in college, it was starting to all make sense. I could start to see a little bit more of the matrix. And then somebody said, hey, everyone here should buy Dogecoin. And I was like, okay, it seems like a good idea, right? I'm obviously not making any money on the stock market. Might as well buy some Dogecoin. That did okay. And then a while later, the same subreddit was then, sort of taken down and then, relaunched as the original WallStreetBets. And then there was now, but I was hooked. So it was like, okay, what else can I tap into? I found r/cryptocurrency, subreddits on financial literacy. And these were all subjects that I never thought I would need in my life, or never really felt that it was, important for me to study or go into, right? Because I just didn't see that for myself. But it was cool. It was really cool to watch your dog token turn your $100 into $200, and all you had to do was buy it once. Like, you clicked 3 buttons.
James, you make like crypto trading sound so easy. And then what if like my audience right now, they just say, okay, mom, like dad, I want to quit my college and I want to go full-time crypto trading because James make it so easy. What would you say?
Well, first, that's stupid. You shouldn't leave corporate to jump into a whole new industry.
But why did you do it?
Well,
what's your story?
So I think me personally, I'm sort of a different example, right? Because of the amount of time and I think the circumstances of my life that allowed me to spend more time in that space and that industry, right? I feel like if I was studying management instead of computer information systems, I would have looked at computer information systems a little differently. If I did not spend a ridiculous amount of time on World of Warcraft and League of Legends, then I would not have the affinity that I did at the time for spending time staring at a screen and being in chat rooms and live, voice chats, hanging out with, friends online. And so for a lot of the people, right, going through the pandemic, back to sort of a timeline, if you will, the idea of staring at a screen and being locked in a room with the same people, regardless of where you are in the world, you had to confine. There was quarantine, right? In the United States, there was a little bit of a, oh no, this is fake. But I mean, it's very real. If you go to places like Bolivia, there was a very serious curfew. There was a lot of people that died because it was not the priority for vaccines and other, humanitarian aid sort of things. Fun fact, anecdotally, a lot of peers my mother's age in Bolivia at the time ended up getting divorces because these people were for the first time in a room together and they couldn't leave. And there was a lot of divorces. So it's like, I mean, some people could handle it. Some people could not. I think other people that had gone into the online world a little bit more had a bit of an advantage because now it's just like okay to stay inside on your computer, where before the pandemic, it was like, whoa, dude, you shouldn't play video games that much. And I totally understand that, right? Is it like power to the nerds? Like a little bit, and that's okay, but that being said, I think that if you're on the fence as like an audience member listening to this, and you're thinking about getting into cryptocurrency trading, I would say ask yourself why.
Because they want to be digital nomads.
That's a great reason to do so. And back to the brand Mono, we are looking at some entry-level financial literacy stuff as it relates to the cryptocurrency market, because I do, with Mono, want to really meet people where they're at. And that's why it's not, an IP play with another NFT project. It's really meant to exist sort of as an homage to that world. Great. That's why there's, monkey branding all over it, because I'm a big fan of the Bored Ape Yacht Club. I'm in that world, right? That's my stuff. Those are my people. But not everyone who sets up a crypto wallet on Coinbase for the first time is going to be willing to throw the income of like family of four in most countries of the world at a digital picture of a monkey to try and still not know exactly what you want to do. I think it's the same thing as, folks who go to college and try to take out massive loans and still not know what they want to study at the end of it. So going back to your question, I think the first thing you should do is ask yourself why. You find the why. And once you find your why, then the rest of the picture starts to form up a little bit, right? For me, my why, and a big part of my personal why, was because I wanted to spend more time with my family. The part of my family that's in Bolivia really means a lot to me. At the time, my current employment situation and my current job experience was not conducive to me working online.
What did you do?
So I used to work for an aerospace and defense company. And because it was in federal contractor for a lot of the most highest military spending governments in the world, in those sort of roles, you have a very strict code of conduct. For instance, I was told, do not download TikTok or you'll have employment repercussions.
I'm not going to ask you if you download it, but
I was also told, hey, if you don't get a vaccine, you're going to have employment repercussions. Hey, if you're going to travel to certain countries, you have to let us know. A little bit restrictive to me, and felt like something that I did not want, because my father was a career government employee. I jokingly feel like I was a government employee my whole life because my dad was who he was, and he was somebody who was very strict with my brother and I really love him for that because it made me who I am today. But I was not looking to get into a career for the next 40 years and just have the same life for my family someday that my dad did with our family, right? I'm not saying it's negative in any way, shape, or form. I think it made me who I am today, but it was sort of something that I want to challenge myself to want more for, you know?
Would you say that was the lowest point of your kind of like emotional state?
Well, it wasn't like a bright time, you know? I'd say lowest points of my emotional state are times where I did not do very well as it relates to cryptocurrency trading or as it relates to entrepreneurship. For me personally, entrepreneurship, trading, all of these things are connected and fluid. It's just as important to make sure you're eating healthy, taking care of your body and this like giant meat sack that we all inhabit, as it is for you to make sure that you have the financial literacy and the education that you want to have for the goals that you have for your life, right? Whatever those may be. For some people, it is probably best to get a Roth IRA, to look into a 401k plan, to find a company that can give you health insurance. And then once you have your safety net, start to look at some cryptocurrency opportunities. Maybe you start with the S&P 500 first, or, you know, whatever the equivalent index is in your country of origin. The other advantage I had, I think at the time, was being a little bit reckless. Right?
Yeah, I was about to say it, but you did differently. Like, why?
I remember when I was in college and I switched to what ended up being my alma mater. I had a ton of business credits and a ton of credits from an IB program in high school. You know, I was the kid that when I showed up to college with a bunch of IB credits and I was technically a sophomore, that meant that I had a year to party and enjoy myself as a freshman. I totally did. It was a great time and I learned a lot. And so when I went to this new university, one of my academic advisors looked at me very seriously and said, look, you need to change your degree program because you're no longer competitive in the business world. Because of your age and your laggard approach to education, you are now well behind the curve of your business student peers.
How did you feel?
I was like, well, that sucks. You know, so, but it was based, like, I've always been the guy that's like, okay, well, that's shitty, but like, what are my options? What's the next thing? You know, what can I do? I'm never the guy that says, well, I can't do that, so I'm going to go and feel sorry for myself. And if you're that person, then maybe there's some soul searching that needs to happen before you get into cryptocurrency trading, right? Because if you don't have the mental to like make sure you're eating right and taking care of yourself, which is, you know, from physical to mental, then the last thing you should be doing is affecting your financial well-being without having your personal well-being secured, right? Like it's like they always say on airplanes, right? You got to put your own oxygen mask on before you can help others. And so in large part with Mono, that's what I've been doing, is sort of finding avenues where I fell short. Once I left corporate, I needed health insurance. There was a COBRA plan offered to me, which is a good long government acronym for, hey, if you're an employee in the United States and you lose your employment, or you know, rescind your employment, or you self-terminate, or you quit your job, whatever you want to call it, legally, the company has to offer you the same plan at the rate that they're paying for. So you can just keep your existing health, vision, and dental plan, but now you pay for it at the same rate the company pays for it.
Okay.
Helpful. Not really conducive to like traveling around and doing different things, right? So after some brainstorming and really getting into Mono a lot more, I partnered with this company, Geni, out of Germany, specifically in Berlin, and they have amazing digital nomad health insurance plans. Health, vision, dental, affordable rate, works in your country of origin and around the world. And there's even family plans, right? And so with the development team I'm working with, we've built out an entirely new website that has a native widget or app that you can like see access to the portal for Geni. You can, you know, plug your data in live right there on the screen. So the numbers change as you click, which is one of my favorite things. People see the new website and some of the, you know, real world utilities that I've built into Mono. It'll be a lot more clear in terms of how you can start to do this. And especially once we get more active with the financial literacy and really educating our community on that aspect of things, I think it'll be a lot more attainable. You can find Mono on TikTok. You can find us on Instagram Shop. You can find us on Pinterest. Not a lot of crypto brands are doing that right now. And that's because it's not just about the cryptocurrency life, right? It's meant to be for people who want to travel. Like demographically, I think as of 2022, maybe 2023, the majority of Americans from like the 20 to 25 age bracket don't really have passports or leave the United States. But the ones that do statistically really only did so about 5 days of the year as like a long consecutive trip. It's a lot easier to, go visit family across the country in New York if you're living in California than it is to go from California to, Hong Kong in a place where you don't know the language, the culture, or really anything, or have a reason to go beyond the desire to explore a new place. When there's so many new places in your country of origin, in this case, the United States, that you can still explore. So around, for me personally, what got me out to places like Hong Kong and South Korea was the cryptocurrency industry, and specifically the Bored Ape Yacht Club. And so that's why, another facet of building Mono has been to build within that community of people that are just as excited, if not more excited than me, about the cryptocurrency space as a vehicle for intellectual property ownership, as a vehicle for data privacy ownership, and just borderless financial health and opportunity for yourself. Things like digital identity are a little bit more out there still, but I think that as Mono currently exists, the strategy has been to tap into that existing community, because those are the people that are currently excited about this lifestyle. And once that core is sort of formed, continue to preach the good word of Mono, which is, yes, you can travel. Yes, you can go hang out on a beach in Mexico. You can go and be with your family in Thailand and actually still save some money, right? Because if you're making $40,000 to $50,000 a year, maybe your significant other is doing the same. The reality of living in the United States is $250 is really not that much in the grand scheme of things. And that's a very unachievable number for the majority of Americans, right? Even $400,000 a year in places like New York City or California just doesn't feel remotely like it used to even 10, 20 years ago. And that's because of, certain external economic factors like inflation, for example. And I think the solution to those problems is cryptocurrency, is the opportunity to have online income, if you will, in US dollars, and then be able to actually save some of that because you're able to live in a place like Mexico where there is a favorable exchange rate, way healthier food across the board, and way better public transportation across the board, way better access to internet. I'll say the food again, because I just love food. I love to eat. That's like one of my favorite things in the world. I look forward to it at least 3 times a day, maybe more. And again, I think it does somehow link to trading. Like if you're not taking care of yourself, you're not going to be a good trader. You're not going to be a good entrepreneur if you don't take care of yourself. You're not going to be, a good husband. You're not going to be a good anything really if you can't get out of bed in the morning and feel good about yourself. Right. So I think it does go back to who you are as a person. And for me, that just happens to be someone who likes to travel and get excited about this cryptocurrency stuff.
It sounds like you took calculated risk. So my question is, when was the point you feel like, okay, I'm safe enough to do whatever I want right now?
I think it was an Instagram post, actually. It was like a reel, because I like to spend time on social media to sort of decompress sometimes. And it presented the idea that if you look at a global median income, the average like wealth or net worth or really just annual income of like a family of 4 around the world, right? To be in the top 30, 40% of earners in the world, it's like $30,000 or $40,000 US. Does that shock some people? I hope not. Does it probably still shock people? Yeah. But that's the reality of the world. I'm not here to say that, hey, you need to go to college and you need to, get a corporate job. And that has to be a corporate job that pays you enough to live in your apartment in Kansas City and then still buy the car lease and still buy the car lease insurance and the renter's insurance and all the things you need to fit into life. Find a nice online call center gig, for example, that can pay you $30,000, $40,000 a year and go check out a hostel or 2 in Cancun. You'll be surprised by how much money you can actually save, right? If you're willing to put yourself out there a little bit. It's scary. There's a beautiful blog post on something called Mono's World, which is a little Substack blog I do, talking about how the majority of places around the world are actually really nice. And the majority of people around the world, regardless of where they come from or who they are, or what language they speak, are just like you and just want to do what's right for them and their family and their loved ones. If you ask someone on the streets of Lisbon, hey, where is the bathroom? And they don't speak a lick of English, you can sort of sign your way through that. Like you can say, water, I need water. And most people, even in Japan, are like, oh, great, yeah, we can help. And surprisingly enough, unlike the United States, most people in other countries speak multiple languages, right? So it's a lot easier for people around the world to be welcoming, right? Because they have that cultural experience. I love Europe, for example, because public transportation is great, food's amazing, people are nice, but because you can go from Luxembourg to Belgium, back to Luxembourg, hit Germany the next day, go back to Luxembourg and end up in France the day after over a long weekend. Maybe spend beyond the 17 or 20 euros for your car rental, double that for gas, if that. And you've seen 3 different countries in a weekend. And each one of those countries, Belgium does speak French, and France does speak French as well, but it's sort of a different French. And you learn that when you go to these places. It's doable. And it's not something where you need to have, $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 a year coming in order to feel like you're safe enough to do that. Once I saw that Instagram post, it was like, okay, I can do that. And I just gave it a shot.
Do you think that's sustainable? I have a lot of nomads friends. They're like deeply depressed because they are not able to afford sustainable relationships or with the place, also with the person and stuff. And then they are just pretty lost. And some of them are because I'm also in the space, right? The Web3 space. We say it's a bubble, but actually some of them are really financially successful already. And right now they're lost because they are nomads. They have no personal relationship, no stable places to stay, and lost all the connections. What would you say? Is it sustainable?
I think so, if you do the work on yourself first. I'm not too proud to say that I saw a therapist for 3 years straight just to make sure that I did the work that I needed to on my inner turmoils and traumas and things that I felt I needed to address in me in order to be the best version of myself. That's why when I go to these places, I don't feel alone because I'm happy with who I am. Estonia, if I showed up 3 days early, because I wanted to learn a little bit about the country and explore some of the places around the city center. And why Estonia? Well, Estonian is a very unique language because it's actually completely different from Russian or Finnish or Hungarian or any of the languages spoken in the immediate area. Why? I have no idea. But it's like you hear somebody talking Estonian and it's like, dude, I didn't even get one word, because it all sounds like a jumbled mess to me. I still, after a week in Estonia, not a lick, not one word. But why did I not feel alone? And why did I still do it? And why did I have fun doing it? And why would I do it again 10 times over? Because it was cool to me. And again, it goes back to what you think is cool, who you are as a person, do the work to find those answers first. And then everything else starts to work itself out. That's really what it means when you wear something with the Mono logo. Just enjoy yourself. Does that mean it's possible everywhere around the world? Yes, it is. And that's why, one of the things I pride myself on with Mono is that we do have global shipping. I've built a network of suppliers in Latvia, in the United States, in South America, in Asia. So that way, when you click buy on something, it routes it to the right place to not only help save me a little bit on shipping as a good entrepreneur, and customs, but also to have really accessible price points for a lot of our products, right? And more stuff is coming in the future that will be more accessible, even in local markets like Bolivia, where a $20 t-shirt is still a ridiculous investment. I don't think that where you are and how much money you make should limit you from aligning with the cool stuff that's possible with Mono. And being a part of that is what makes a modern nomad different from what a digital nomad is.
What do you see yourself in 10 years? What do you see Mono in 10 years?
One of the other Instagram posts that really spoke to me was...
Dude, after this podcast, everybody just scrolling
Instagram is healthy.
Yeah.
Scrolling Instagram is very healthy if you follow the right stuff, right? if you scroll through your For You page on any social media platform and any of the 10 posts, like literally open up your phone, scroll 10 posts on any social media on your For You page, which is the one the algorithm generates for you. That's why it's called the For You page. So hear me out, right? The point is that if those posts are not personal growth, health and fitness, something that makes you laugh, just things that bring you personal joy, you need to work on your Instagram algorithm. You need to go and unfollow a bunch of accounts, maybe delete your account entirely and reset, because there's so much noise out there and so many people that use social media as a cry for help. It's just not healthy, you know? So there are healthy ways to use social media. There are healthy ways to take care of your body and your mental health, right? There are these healthy things that you can do. But again, so one of the Instagram posts, it was about, how do I say this nicely? It was from the same wealth account, and it was about like exploring the world a little bit. And I totally forgot the question. Hit me again.
Like, how do you see yourself
in 10 years? Okay. Yeah. So the Instagram post was about the sale of Supreme to, I think it was the LVMH or this Bernard Arnault guy, right?
The richest guy.
Some big, you know, mysterious figure who happens to own Hennessy and Louis Vuitton and Moet and all these like brands, right? He just sits there at the top of his castle, probably a really nice, genuine human being. He bought this company, Supreme, I think. It could have been some other company. But the point is that Supreme was acquired for $1.5 billion. Back to the beginning of the podcast, when I was talking a little bit about the vision for Mono, I see myself like an attempted Supreme. Why do I say attempted? Because I haven't really done a whole lot yet. I'm still early stage. And so the goal for Mono in the next 5 to 10 years is if I can do 1.51 billion in an exit, and I can beat Supreme. So that would be really, really freaking cool to me. And I think it's possible. It's just going to take a lot of work. And I'm here for it because it's kind of fun. It doesn't really feel like work to me.
How do you find a healthy balance?
So I've built Mono to be an extension of me, right? And that's why I think it works, because it's not something that I have to try to do. This is what I've been doing, what I get energy from. And so for me to slap a logo on it and help use that as a vehicle to find other people like me and let other people know that, hey, they can do this if they want to, that's what keeps me going. So it's like, I think a better way to answer your question is I don't need a vacation from my life because my life already feels like a vacation, regardless of how much time I spend on the laptop or answering text messages or Telegram channels and chats. Like, my life does not feel like work. When the last time my life felt like work, I changed it because I didn't like it.
But like, so many people are unhappy about their current situation, but they are not changing it.
I think the most important thing to do is ask yourself why you're scared to change it. This is where I have to draw sort of a line because I'm not a therapist personally. But again, because of technology, you have apps like BetterHelp or, you know, Calm or Headspace. There's even shows on Netflix. I love Netflix documentaries. I so love Netflix documentaries. There are Netflix documentaries. Go watch Explained on Mindful. It's got one of the best intro tracks of any Netflix series. It's by Vox, but they do a great job with this. And they have like a really cool, like a 5-year-old could watch this and learn a little bit about mental health, right? Those are the kind of shows that I like. Just go learn something. It's not expensive to learn. If you're unhappy, you can change it. You just might need to learn a little bit. If that's too much, if it's too hard to watch an extra Netflix series, then, you know, I really would recommend seeking professional help because like I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, I'm really impressed by how open you are in terms of like talking about your therapy session or like journey, because I have met a lot of like guys in my life. Also my friend's husband, my friend's like boyfriends, they're not open for it because they think only the sick people go into therapy, right? But like all of my friends, because we're just girls, couple therapies, like we're open, or like, you know, even I was on better health sometimes. Yeah, I'm just really impressed. I'm just really impressed by how open you are. Would you recommend people really seek for professional help? Because like, okay, one of my friend, they're a couple, they are really having trouble. Wife's side, which is a really close friend of mine, she really want to try this couple therapy thing. What would you say to like this kind of situation? Because I do think it's important, right? But not everybody, and there are a lot of people stuck in this kind of mindset.
I said this earlier. My old man was and is a very traditional conservative guy, and so the idea of going to seek professional help is instantly something that makes you insane and crazy and like you can't handle your stuff yourself. Like, oh, You know, it's not a good thing. And that's just the generational stigma of what the reality of today's world is. I mean, the first thing I would say is like, hey, it's 2024. Like, it's okay to ask for help sometimes. Closed mouths never get fed. So even in entrepreneurship, right, if you don't ask for something, you will never get anything. Getting comfortable with asking for things is how doors open for you. There's a beautiful book called The Third Door by Alex Banayan. Read that. Then I would say, check out Robert Greene's 48 Laws of Power. That's another great one. And then Augustus Masters, To Be a Man is the title of the book. I may be butchering the guy's last name, but I'm almost positive that's the book. And I don't know the author of this next book off the top of my head, but No More Mr. Nice Guy was an amazing book for me. What is sort of the common thread between all of these books and one Netflix series, Stutz, where Jonah Hill goes literally on live interviews with his therapist on Netflix. I mean, he's Jonah Hill, not knowing much about this friend or this friend's husband. I mean, or their personal opinions of Jonah Hill as a human being. I think the common thread in all of this is just give it a shot. From an angle of masculinity, it's almost like, okay, if I'm so masculine that I can't ask for help, isn't it kind of weak from the framework of masculinity to not be willing to ask for help? Because clearly something's not working. Mr. Masculinity is clearly not masculine enough to deal with the current problem. So wouldn't it be more masculine to ask for help to learn how to deal with it, to still stay within that conservative power mindset, right? Like, it's like, okay, well, if I can't do something, then I should find a way to achieve that thing. If that thing happens to be an unhappy marriage, right? Maybe the why is for the sake of the kid. My dad always would say, happy wife, happy life. But it's just, it's a good way to look at it, I think. I'm not married personally, so I don't really have too much of an opinion.
Is your mom happy then?
I think she's very happy.
Oh, great.
Yeah, I mean, it's not something I've ever really asked her, to be honest.
Okay, so talking about if you're masculine or not, if I see my dad, I feel like he's just really strong, independent. And when my grandpa passed, he didn't even cry. He just the first thing he did was call the ambulance and then sort everything out. Super calm, and then afterwards he told me at that point, if he panic, the entire family is gonna panic. You know, that's kind of one side of being masculine. Another side is that right now you're Gen Z, right? You're Gen Z, I'm born Gen Z. And then what we see a lot in this generation is more I wouldn't say feminist, but they can, the guys in our, I don't know, you put it in a better way. They're more okay, let's talk about dating. They don't even dare to talk to real girl on the street, right? If they see a girl pass by, oh my gosh, she's hot, but I just don't have the courage to talk to her. And meanwhile, I still have to dealing with all this kind of inner insecurity and stuff. And probably to some certain point, I feel like we should blame on internet, right? Because internet and swiping makes everything so easy. When it's a real life encounter, they just didn't have the courage to make the first step. One side, we have my dad or your old man, that kind of person. They're just, let's get the shit done. On the other hand, we have younger generation, younger guys. They don't have even, they probably don't even have a role model, right? Or they just only have Andrew Tate as a role model on the internet. That is just horrible, right? So I think it's dilemma. I don't know.
The first thing that I'll hit on in what you just unpacked is the idea of online dating and the internet as a negative catalyst for any number of mental health. I don't think it's bad. I don't think the internet is bad at all. The internet takes care of me. I mean, personally, I think I'd be okay without the internet, but there would be a little bit of an adjustment period. One of the most beautiful trips I've taken in the last 2 years was to a remote vacation rental property in Bolivia that was supposed to have good internet and Wi-Fi, but did not. I lost service 5 minutes out of the nearest town, and I still drove 2 hours after that to get to the property. So for 4 days straight, I had no way of contacting anyone. I was completely disconnected. And I found journaling again for the first time in a bunch of years because I just had a book with me that I was using to take notes, and suddenly I could use it to write. Creating is a good thing. creating your reality is possible. For a lot of people, it's not the healthiest thing to do. But I think that, again, if you work on yourself first, you can find ways to affect your reality little by little to get to where you want to be. For me personally, I haven't had dating apps in like a year. It was very scary at first, but eventually, yes, you do find ways to talk to women. I mean, I'm a heterosexual man myself. So for me personally, I think that it might be a little bit easier to put myself out there than for other people with unique experiences. But that being said, regardless of one's personal experience or affinities, it is impossible eventually to have an entire relationship or whatever that is online. There is the in-person component. One of my favorite things about the cryptocurrency world are the conferences, going in person and seeing the people that you're super excited about being buddies with on the internet. There's another book by Robert Greene, The Art of Seduction. Go rent that. Do an ebook. Some people like ebooks. You can learn a lot from a book like that about different stories about guys like Casanova once upon a time, who are the embodiment of what today is called toxic masculinity, and just the way that some of these approaches were made once upon a time or would be like arrestable offenses in a lot of countries today. I'm not saying that the way to pick up the paramour of yours on the street is by going up to her and tapping her on the shoulder and saying, hey, I think you're gorgeous. But it might be a start. Just don't be creepy about it. That's what's lost on people who spend too much time on the internet, is the idea of creepy and cringe pushed to you on your For You page on whatever social media app is going to be what you internalize and believe to be true. So start there, clean your apps, maybe just make an entirely new account. And then maybe, after a few weeks, go back to the old account, log into it and scroll the For You page of the old account and then scroll the For You page of the new account. For a lot of people, it's like an addiction. And once they see, whatever was getting them addicted to the social media app on the previous platform, again, it's like, oh my goodness, this is a rush. Now I'm back, show me all the memes about depression and anxiety. Like, no, seeing the memes about depression and anxiety and being scared is compounding the inner monologue that says, hey, I'm anxious, I'm depressed, I'm scared, right? So remove those stimulus sort of, things from your life and things become more clear. The other unfortunate side of things like the internet, again, this goes back to an Instagram post I saw, from the male sort of framework of things. My grandfather, for example, probably saw 10 beautiful women, like truly beautiful women, his entire life. Today, you can open Instagram and see 100 in like 5 minutes, right?
Selection.
That's why OnlyFans is such a booming company these days, because it's easy and it's a form of entrepreneurship for a lot of young women and men around the world. Totally okay with that. Nothing against it. But if that's where you're spending most of your time interacting with women as a man, it is probably not a healthy way to meet these women in real life. That's all I'll say.
That's a really nice way to put it. Now we are going towards the end of interview. The first time when I met you, and I was like, okay, this guy is really down to earth, And then meanwhile, there are a lot of things we didn't have time to share on the podcast, but I know a lot of your personal stuff, how you created your ups and downs. You had a lot of ups and downs. I was hoping actually from the beginning, I was like, we can cover all of that, but we didn't. Hopefully we'll have you next time. I really like the concept of mono and then what you're building and then vision and mission. When a person really wear your brand, I believe they can really truly feel deep inside of this desire to change or going towards the better future or jumping out from this discomfort, but meanwhile also in the comfort zone kind of situation.
It's a cozy product line.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So my final one to you would be, what would you wish I would have asked you but I didn't? And how would you answer it?
You never asked. I said I love food like seven or eight times, and you never asked me once what my favorite thing to eat is or where my favorite restaurant is.
Okay.
So
what's your favorite restaurant? What's your favorite food?
My favorite food, if I had to eat one thing every day for the rest of my life, is a specific kind of tuna called fatty tuna. Okay. And I want it over rice. And I want the rice to be warm. And I want a little bit of seaweed on top of the tuna. That's it. I would eat that 3 times a day, every day for the rest of my life. Every single day. I will sign the paperwork today. Favorite restaurant in the world. Again, I'm blessed and fortunate enough to say that I have experienced 3-star Michelin dining. I have not experienced what I found out last year to be the equivalent in Asia from China called the Black Pearls, or it's like, for a different style of palate and cuisine. And there may even be more of those sort of rating systems, but that doesn't mean that those are the best places to eat in the world. In Brazil, in Sao Paulo, I forget the name of the restaurant, but they had this sauce called piraja. It's a spicy sort of creamy sauce. It's got a little touch of vinegar in there. And it's served with something called cojina. It's like Coixhna, right? Like Brazilian pronunciation, Portuguese pronunciation. It's like stuffed, fried, like fish, meat, chicken, vegetables, wrapped in like a dough. Think of like a deep fried dumpling, but like with the skin of a delicious KFC chicken.
Yeah.
I could eat 100 of those things. And I will have to look at the name of the restaurant and send it to you. But that restaurant in Sao Paulo, Brazil is one of the best restaurants I've been to in the world.
How about today? Later, just find that restaurant and post on Mono's like Instagram and TikTok. And then when this podcast released, people can go back to see, okay, which restaurant James was I talking about?
That would be cool.
How about that? Okay, so like how can people find your community? Because I had a strong feeling and impression that in your brand, community is a big thing. So like tell us.
So follow Mono Nomads, all one word, lowercase, no spaces, MONO Nomads on X, Instagram. We have a Facebook page so you can share with your parents too. We have Pinterest, again, all the same handle. And the same URL online, mononomads.com. All the links for our socials are at the bottom of the page. I would say go check that out today. And if it's something that you're really excited about and interested in, then throw a follow on some of those socials. And then, every now and then I like to share out a link to a Telegram group where it's a little bit more of an open discussion. A lot of the new announcements and things are shared there first before other social networks. And the reason why that's not immediately public, it will be soon, is because the community that currently exists around Mono is a really curated community. What does that mean? It's different than me just picking my buddies and putting them in there, because it's like a lot of these people I've met around the world, and they're the people that have been willing to drink the Kool-Aid a little bit and get excited about what I'm selling here with Mono, which is the vision of Mono. And those people get access to the Telegram first, right? Because those are the people that ask me, hey, so how can I stay up with you? And I can see them in person, and I can shake their hands and see their smiles and watch them get excited about it. And those are the kind of people that I want in the community, right? So if that's you check out the socials, you really like it, shoot us a message. Facebook Messenger, X Messenger, Instagram message. Just be like, hey, I want the Telegram. You're more than welcome to join.
Thank you, James, for your work. And then I'm like, I think a lot of people, when they're listening to this, and then they will love to join. And I'm so honored to be part of the community as well. And thank you.
You're so welcome.
Thank you for listening, and you can leave your comment below, ask the questions, and I will pick one of the best questions and then add as the guest without you knowing who is the guest you are going to ask the question to. So thank you for listening.